In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and apparently a never-ending supply of dudes in flak vests holding glorified flashlights. The Astra Militarum, or Imperial Guard, if you're not trying to impress a Munitorum officer, are often treated like the galaxy's punchline. The joke practically writes itself. Their armor is made of cardboard, their guns can't toast bread, and their main tactical doctrine is, hope the enemy runs out of ammo first. But here's the thing, what if that joke is covering up one of the most powerful military forces the galaxy has ever seen? This isn't just a bunch of unlucky conscripts getting yeeted into the meat grinder for dramatic flair. The Imperial Guard is a galaxy-spanning war machine, a logistical nightmare that somehow works, a force that has broken Xeno's empires, stared down the Eye of Terror, and buried demigods under firepower until even the warp had to blink. We're going to break this down and show why the Guard is so much stronger than people give them credit for. From the absurd scale of their deployment, to the elite regiments that make Navy SEALs look like mall cops, from their seemingly primitive arsenal that turns out to be devastating in context, to the sheer, horrifying power of their morale system, which runs on propaganda, fear, and the occasional summary execution. By the end of this, you won't be laughing at las guns, you'll be hoping they never point one at you. Before they were the hammer of the Imperium, the Proto-Imperial Guard were the armies that crushed Earth. Back during the Unification Wars, the Emperor didn't rely on just gene-forged monsters. He built vast ranks of human soldiers loyal to his vision, using them to sweep aside techno-barbarians, warp cults, and the nightmares ruling Terra's ruins. These weren't weekend reservists either. These were chemically enhanced, surgically modified warriors wielding archaic weapons with modern efficiency, drilled to perfection in the brutal crucible of constant war. As the Great Crusade began, these soldiers evolved into the Imperial Army, a combined arms force made up of human regiments, armored divisions, and void-capable fleets. While the Space Marines grabbed headlines, it was the army that held worlds, enforced compliance, and kept order after the Astartes moved on. You don't conquer 1,000,000 worlds with just 20 legions. You do it with trillions of boots on the ground and a supply chain that only Mars could love. Though the modern Guard didn't emerge in full until after the heresy, their spiritual ancestor was there from the start. Humanity's first galactic army. Not flashy, not superhuman, but absolutely essential. And they've been dying in droves to keep the Imperium alive ever since. The Imperium doesn't win wars by being clever. It wins them by throwing more bodies at a problem than the enemy has bullets. The Astra Militarum, better known as the Imperial Guard, is the largest fighting force in the galaxy. We're talking trillions of soldiers, not thousands, not millions, trillions, drawn from 1,000,000 worlds, each with their own cultures, doctrines, and levels of insanity. Every day, entire generations are churned through war zones just to hold a single hive city, and the next day, they do it again. Sure, an individual guardsman might be about as durable as wet cardboard, and their las gun might be mistaken for a flashlight, but they don't fight alone. When the Guard descends on a planet, it's not a surgical strike, it's an extinction-level event. Waves of infantry, ranks of tanks, artillery barrages that blot out the sky, orbital strikes like angry gods coughing. As one infamous quote puts it, the Imperial Guard does not win wars through strategy or subtlety. They win by burying the enemy under so many bodies, shells, and tanks that resistance becomes mathematically impossible. It's not glamorous, it's not heroic, but it works. And in the grimdark future, that's all that matters. Let's kill the meme right now. The Imperial Guard is not some under-equipped ragtag horde carrying flashlights and held together by paper armor and good intentions. That's the punchline, but the reality is much more terrifying. While the humble lasgun is mass-produced and simple, it's designed that way on purpose. It can fire in vacuum, underwater, in the cold void of space, and it never jams. It's powered by charge packs that can be recharged in a campfire. It's not flashy. Is it effective when there's a million of them firing at once, though? Oh yes, that simplicity isn't a flaw. It's the point. Now multiply that practicality across their entire arsenal, and suddenly the joke isn't so funny. Take the Lehman Russ battle tank, a vehicle so rugged, so idiot-proof, that it's remained largely unchanged for 10,000 years. It's not elegant. It doesn't need to be. It's a slab of rolling death, armed with a battle cannon, heavy bolters, and enough armor to shrug off most anti-infantry fire. Then there's the Baneblade, a tank so absurdly massive that it's more like a mobile fortress. Each one is a war crime on treads, multiple turrets, sponsons, and the ability to flatten entire regiments. And don't forget, artillery like the Basilisk, Manticore, or Death Strike missile launcher, the last of which fires literal intercontinental ballistic missiles tipped with nuclear, chemical, or even vortex payloads. The Guard doesn't need precision. They just erase coordinates. Air superiority isn't off the table either. The Valkyrie drops troops straight into hell zones, while Thunderbolts and Marauders clear the skies. If something still moves after that, the Guard calls in orbital strikes from Navy vessels. And when it gets truly desperate, they'll deploy atomic weapons, cyclonic torpedoes, or call an exterminatus. Low-tech? They have access to weapons capable of ending civilizations. They just don't brag about it because it's Wednesday and they've got 17 more wars to fight by Friday. The genius of the Guard's arsenal isn't just in its brutality, it's in its scalability. Their war machine doesn't rely on rare materials or exotic plasma coils that break every 5 minutes. It relies on mass production, reliability, and sheer volume. A single guardsman may be replaceable, but their tanks and guns are eternal, passed down, patched up, and purring on the battlefield like angry metal dinosaurs. Not all guardsmen are created equal. Sure, the average planetary conscript might get handed a lasgun and a flak vest and told to walk toward the screaming, but there are regiments in the Guard that make Astartes take a second look. The Imperium spans 1,000,000 worlds, and everyone has its own culture, terrain, and methods of war. That means the Astra Militarum isn't just a sledgehammer, it's a Swiss army knife dipped in promethium. For every faceless wave of conscripts, there's a specialized regiment that turns war into an art form. Start with the Cadians. Even after the fall of their homeworld, they remain the gold standard of discipline and training. These are soldiers raised in the shadow of the Eye of Terror, where demon incursions were Tuesday afternoon inconveniences. Every child learns to field strip a lasgun before they can walk. Even post-Cadia, the surviving regiments carry their legacy like a banner made of spite and discipline. Then, there's the infamous Death Corps of Krieg, the trench-fighting, gas mask-wearing fanatics who believe dying for the Emperor isn't just a duty, it's a lifestyle. These are the guys who launch massed bayonet charges into artillery fire just to warm up. Looking for jungle warfare? Meet the Catachans, who are so muscular and angry they make Ogrins feel insecure. Their homeworld is basically a death trap filled with carnivorous plants, venomous everything, and zero OSHA compliance. If a Catachan survives childhood, they're basically a stealthy walking tank with a machete and no regard for hygiene or enemy lives. And if you want air power and high-stakes deployment, look no further than the Elysian drop troops, who dive into war zones from Valkyries with jetpacks and nerves of steel. They're light infantry, yes, but light like a surgical scalpel, not a paper cut. Each of these regiments fights with a distinct flavor: urban siege masters, suicidal artillerymen, guerrilla jungle warriors, airborne commandos. And the beauty of the Guard is that all of them exist side by side. The Astra Militarum doesn't care how you win a war. You could outlast it, outgun it, or just punch it in the throat with a shovel. If it ends with a flag planted and the enemy dead, then the Munitorum calls it a success. And these regiments, they've made success look terrifyingly routine. If there's one thing more terrifying than an endless wave of guardsmen charging your position, it's realizing that they're not stopping. Not because they're mindless, not because they're fearless, but because they know how bad this galaxy is, and they're still doing it anyway. The Astra Militarum isn't made up of hopeful idealists or genetically engineered paragons. These are regular men and women, yanked from their home planets, handed a lasgun and a helmet, and told to hold the line against horrors that shouldn't exist. And somehow, they do. That kind of courage isn't blind heroism. It's stubborn, fatalistic, and deeply pragmatic. The average veteran guardsman knows exactly what they're walking into, but they still show up, dig in, and fight until their bones are mulch and their boots are ash. There's a special kind of bravery that comes from knowing you're probably going to die and choosing to make your death inconvenient for the enemy. It's not pretty, it's not noble, but it's the kind of steel that even Astartes respect. Of course, it helps when there's a commissar nearby with a bolt pistol and a very enthusiastic interpretation of the word cowardice. Nothing sharpens the will to fight quite like hearing the safety click off behind you. And yet, even with that looming threat, the Guard's discipline runs deeper than fear. It's not just about avoiding execution, it's about faith, about duty, about making sure the guy next to you gets one more shot off before the swarm hits. It's knowing that even if you die screaming in a mud pit, you're still part of something bigger, a war machine fueled by human defiance and the stubborn refusal to give chaos the last laugh. The Imperium has psychers who can melt your brain and Astartes who can rip you in half, but nothing, not even a demon prince, looks at a human still firing a lasgun with half a torso and doesn't feel something twist in its gut. The Guard's greatest weapon isn't its tanks or its tactics. It's the simple, awful truth that you cannot break someone who was already broken and kept going anyway. Every army has its heroes. The Astra Militarum has entire wars that sound like they were written by drunk demigods trying to one-up each other. You want legendary? Let's start with Cadia, the planet that stood like a loaded gun aimed at the Eye of Terror, defying chaos for 10,000 years. When the 13th Black Crusade hit, when Abaddon hurled entire Black Legion warbands and orbital bombardments that cracked the crust, the Guard didn't run. They held until the planet broke beneath their boots, literally. And even then, they fought in the wreckage. The final moments of Cadia weren't about defeat. They were a cosmic "screw you" shouted through gritted teeth as the stars themselves collapsed. Or take the Macarian Crusade, where one man, one baseline human man, led the Guard across 1,000 light-years of hostile space, conquering system after system like some kind of imperial Alexander the Great. Lord Solar Macarius took planets defended by Xenos, rebels, heretics, and worse, and he didn't do it with trickery or warp magic. He did it with logistics, discipline, and overwhelming firepower. There are Space Marines who've won fewer wars than this guy's supply clerks. Then there's the wars for Armageddon. Pick one, really. On that planet, the Guard has stood toe-to-toe with orcs so massive they needed a full planetary invasion just to contain them. In the Second War, it was Yarrick versus Gazkul, and guess what? The old man lived. The orc remembered him. Gazkul respected him enough to come back later for round 2, like a green-skinned Batman villain. The Guard didn't win with fancy relics or secret tech. They won with trenches, bodies, and iron will. The kind of victory you don't brag about, you just endure. So, after all that, are we still pretending these guys are a joke? The Imperial Guard isn't just some tragic meat grinder designed to stall for time while the real heroes show up. They are the real heroes. The wall that holds, the tide that turns, the hammer that smashes the galaxy into submission, one shell, one scream, one impossible order at a time. Other factions win battles with relics and miracles. The Guard wins wars with mud, blood, and sheer, unholy numbers. They don't need to be flashy. They need to work. And they do. Across 10,000 years of horror, they've endured. Not because they're superhuman, but because they're purely human. Because sometimes, the scariest thing in the galaxy isn't the demon or the Xenos. It's a regular person who refuses to die. So yeah, maybe they're carrying las guns. Maybe their armor looks like it's made from leftover lunch trays. But here's the question you should ask yourself before laughing. Are they really just guys with flashlights? Or are they the most terrifying army in the galaxy? That's it for today. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.